The next person I'm going to introduce is Laili. I wasn't aware that I also have to introduce you, but I can say from the last year, I can still remember that your keynote was pretty inspiring and pretty great, so I'm very curious what you prepared for us this time. Enjoy the stage, it's yours now. Enjoy.
I'm sorry, I'm very technologically challenged, so it's an irony that, that I'm in this industry. But I want to start with with a carton of milk. Not as a clever opening or a metaphor. This is a story that really happened. So for the past year, on 3 different occasions, in the canteen of our company, Molano, I saw 3 different colleagues do 3 different things with a carton of expired milk. So my first colleague is a young guy, begin 20s. He saw that the milk expired, and he threw it in the waste bin. Milk and carton together. My second colleague, he is later in his 50s. He saw the same thing. He poured the milk down the drain. He put the lid back on, and then he put the carton in our recycling bin that we then weekly bring to the right space and get some money for it. And then we have another colleague. She is also later in her 50s, and she's a little bit the mother figure of the company. She takes care very well for us. It was on a Friday, and she was tidying it up, and then she took the milk, she looked at it, and she said, almost to herself, "Oh, it's expired, so then I have to take it home." I look up, I didn't understand. So I said, "Why do you have to take it home with you?" She looked at me as if it was so obvious. She said, "It's expired, so I have to see whether I can make yogurt or cheese from it." And you know, there are these moments that something so insignificantly small happens, but it makes you realize something. It makes you think. And I remember pausing for a second and thinking, but this is it. This is exactly what I have been seeing all this time, because not everyone looks at the same object with the same logic. The first one sees waste. The second one sees correct disposal. And the third one sees next life. And it brought to me actually what I've been doing all this time in this industry, because I see the same pattern in my conversations when I speak about drawers full of electronics, or when I speak to municipalities, when I speak to governments, when I speak to consumers. It's the same conversation that I keep having it again and again. It's how do we look at the product? And the question always is, who decides that the product is finished? So I have to warn you a little bit, because I'm a classical ADHDer, so I have a very associative mind. So if I jump from carton of milk to electronics, and from Molano mommy to the Draghi report to AI and sovereignty, then it will make sense at the end, because it's all a little bit of the same. It's all the same. It's all for me the same pattern and the same story that we keep having. So my name is Laili Ishaqzai. I am the co-founder and CEO of Molano. Molano is a wholesale company in circular hardware. We deal with products such as phones, tablets, laptops, servers, so basically every type of electronics, consumer electronics that already exist. And what we try to do at Molano, we try to not give up too fast. So we try to look at the product and then answer the question, where in its life cycle is this product at this moment? So when it comes into our hands, it's not already decided and defined. It's something that we actively look at it. And we need to always understand the stage of life. So is it something that we just need to test and grade and it can go on to the market? Is it something that needs to be repaired? Can it be reused? Can it be refurbished? Can it be remanufactured? Can it be placed on a different market? Can we use it for parts harvesting? Or has it truly reached the point of life that it needs to go to recycle and be recycled correctly? That is for us our final step. So every day at Molano we sit in the space between product and waste. And let me tell you, that's not a very comfortable space, because most of the systems and legislations, they understand new products. And most of the European systems and legislations, they understand perfectly, I must say, waste. But they have a little bit of trouble understanding that space in between. And that is the whole thing, that space in between, that is the place where value is either preserved or lost. So I feel once you work with circular hardware, the question that I asked before becomes bigger. It will not be anymore just when do we decide that the product is finished, this final stage, but also who gets to decide that? The consumer, the market, the recycle companies, the government, software update. Who will decide that? So later, I kept thinking about that milk, that carton of milk. Because, you know, yogurt was probably not invented by someone who was trying to be sustainable. And cheese was not invented or made by someone who was writing a circular policy document. These were survival mechanisms. These were actually survival technologies for that time. So long before we had the language of circular economy, we were already stretching the life of matter. Milk became yogurt. I never make PowerPoints, but milk became yogurt. Yogurt became cheese. Meat was dried, smoked, salted, bones became broth. Fat became soap, candle, fuels. Hides became leather. And I feel like what policy calls at this moment the air ladder used to actually be common sense. So it was already in us. We didn't invent the circularity. We didn't invent how we look at products. We didn't invent, it's not a modern problem the way it's always presented to us. So we have maybe inside of us many more answers than we actually think. So the biggest thing is, I think, our ancestors, the people, they didn't start with waste. They actually started with value, the way my colleague did, because in her logic, the milk was not, end of milk was not waste. End of milk was the beginning of yogurt or cheese. But what we do at this moment, we started at a different angle. So if our ancestors kept asking the same question, what can still become of a product? And then only when the last meaningful value of this product was, that they could get out of it was reached, then it went to the pig. Pig was our equivalent of recycling. After that, to the compost, maybe. And that's why I called this talk Before the Pig, and the air ladder upside down. And why upside down? I think that matters. In our modern circular economy, with all of our directives, our WEEEs, and our ESG frameworks, extended producer responsibilities, I think we have quietly done something strange. We begin where our ancestor ended. So when a phone or just is just old, a few years old, or a laptop is not supported anymore, or a server is administratively obsolete, our first reflex of the system, of the consumer, of the companies, and even of the governments is to reach to our modern equivalent of the pig. For recycling, we already call it waste. And that is where the absurdity lies. Because think about this. If our ancestors treated milk the way we are treating electronics, then probably cheese would be classified as waste. And as a cheese lover, that really hurts me, So I just want to show you one thing before I move on from this point. This is less than 1% of what we would have been missing. And there are very nice products here, such as yogurt, wine, dried fruit. It's just 1% of what we would have been missing if we would see things the way we see things now. And the strange thing is, it's not really philosophical what I'm saying at this moment. It's actually measurable. So the last survey that I could find shows that in 2023, the EU officially collected 11.6 kilograms per person, but the same year, 32.2 kilograms was placed on the market. And that 20 plus kilogram gap per person, that is not just kilograms. Because when you read further, it states that 20 kilogram, those are devices. Those are devices, those are products that we keep hoarding in our houses. So, the drawer, where I spoke about last year as well, the drawer full of electronics, it's not something that I just refer to for you guys to understand, because everybody has one, I know. It's really something real. It is a material reality of Europe at this moment. And another survey from the, I think, same year says that an average household in Europe uses 74 electronics. 30 of them are hoarded. And out of those 13, 9 of those still work. So I feel this is something to really take a moment to understand. These are not just numbers. So that means you in your house, if you're gonna look really closely, probably you have more or less 74 electronics that you use to be alive. And you keep 9 devices hostage. So maybe you'll go home and look at the devices that we still can use, you know. So yeah, when I talk about this drawer and the phones in it, I'm not trying to be poetic. I'm describing the reality. And it keeps troubling me. It really keeps troubling me because unlike milk or meat, the phone in the drawer is not rotting. It's not decomposing. The laptop that you have, it does not come naturally, you know, by their end. So it's something that we choose to look at it this way. We have simply stopped looking at them as if they were still alive in this chain. And I feel like once you start noticing that, you begin to see the same mistakes everywhere. So a few months ago, I had a talk. I scored an appointment with my municipality, and I spoke with someone from the city council. And my idea was very simple. It was stated in the Netherlands, you have 28 million mobile devices held by Dutch households, and we're 18 million people, so you do the math. So I said, I want to get those devices, you know, out of those houses. So let me start locally, because I don't want to talk and have like 2 years conversation to be able to do this. The idea was very simple, maybe naive, but simple. So I thought, let's collect the devices. So, you know, we ask people to bring them, we open a hub, we sort them, we clean them, we look at the data erosion, and then we give them either a second life, a third life, we repair them, we find new markets, we find new value for them, or we, at the end, recycle them correctly. Because I said maybe it's naive, but I feel sometimes, and this I learned really from my business partner, who's, I think, the most practical person I know, the most intelligent thing sometimes is not to have like an perfect plan, but it's just to start and do, and then be flexible, and be able to adjust very fast, and at the end, well, you have your pilot and your concept of proof of concept. But the conversation in Haarlem, in my city, moved to a very different direction. She told me they already worked with the waste processing partner. There were contracts in place. They had recycle bags and repair cafes to do the repairs. And mind you, repair cafes, that means there are volunteers, very nice, kind volunteers who do that as hobby. These are great initiatives, but I was thinking about another level of repair. They have thrift shops, so basically there was already an air ladder, in a sense. And for a moment I thought, maybe I am wrong. I felt very strange after that conversation, I will tell you the truth. And I maybe a little bit angry with myself. I didn't even know the waste disposal company, but also, why should I? I didn't come to talk about waste. I came to talk about product. And I think I didn't understand it when it was during the conversation. But when I started to reflect on it, because it was sitting inside of me, I realized we are not disagreeing with each other, this nice woman and me. We do not disagree about what is circularity. She mentioned the air ladder. I feel the same. We spoke about repair and reuse. So we understand that. But we are just talking about two very different stages of a product. You know, not everybody looks at the same object with the same logic, and this came into this. And I think also a bigger thing, I realized that we have confused the existence of a process with existence of a solution. Because having a chain is not the same as preserving value. But how do I get out of this constant absurdity that I'm always in? If my work is about extending the life of devices, why do I keep having speak the language of waste? And then I started to look at what is my market actually? How do we define these things actually? WEEE, the first letter is already waste. And that is the most important directive we have. So that means the moment someone buys something new and decides they're finished with that something, that is actually the moment that we start to see something as waste. We do not look, how much life does this product still have? And then I was like, but why do we do it this way? Our ancestors didn't do it this way. It's not logical at this moment. And I think I do understand why we started there. You know, we had to start somewhere. And it's as if cleaning your house on a Sunday after having a great and amazing party. So then what do? You start by taking garbage bags and throwing everything away from your house and making sure that that is your starting point. So that 50 years ago, in 1976, we started with this. That I got. But imagine that at this moment, the cleanness of your house would be the same, would be measured by the amounts of garbage bags that you get to dispose in a year. That would not make sense. But why are phones or devices kilograms? And why is that our starting point? And actually our measuring points. And I know I'm going much more over time on this moment. So I go very fast through my slides just to put you. This, on this side, is a recycling company. You know, it's a circular company in a very linear way. And that is a repair company. That is what you need to be doing, the small work, the less, not the work that can do great volumes. Well, you can if you manage it well. But this is this is the difference. And this is, I think, something we need to introduce in this conversation and stop saying who is done with something and start asking, what can this still become? And before I end, I do want to leave you with some things. I do not want to leave you with a model or a solution that would be actually too easy. I want to leave you with discomfort and with questions. Because at the end, I keep coming back to one question. What are we actually doing in practice? Not on paper, not in our legislation, but what are we doing in practice? What can a product still become? That is what my colleague asked when she looked at the milk. That is what our ancestors asked when they looked at basically everything. That is what the farmer asked when he gave something to the pig. And that is also what we at Molano ask every time we get a device and get the honor to look at it and do something with it. So the pig was our first step, final step for centuries. It should not be our first step at this moment. And the phone in your drawer is not rotting. Maybe our imagination is. Thank you very much.